Hey everybody, Charlie here, 334 Good Fishing. So, as the title says, I almost sent my kayak. Um, I want to give y'all some advice on what to do and what not to do, having gone through it now. And I wanted to just make sure everybody is aware of how fast stuff can go wrong. I live in Southern Alabama. In the spring in Southern Alabama, we have a lot of thunderstorms, pop-up storms, everything else. And when these thunderstorms roll through, they roll through. And I went out fishing. I was going to a new lake, and when I got there, I checked before I left. I said, "Oh well, the wind's going to be 10, 15 miles per hour at 2 o'clock or whatever time it was." And I was like, "Oh, well, I fished in 10, 15 mile an hour wind before in my kayak. It's Gunnersville, Eufaula, these bigger lakes. I fished that fast, and it wasn't a problem. Yeah, I got blown around a lot, but it wasn't a big deal." Well, I got out there. Wind was like 5 miles an hour, something like that. It wasn't hardly nothing, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is cool." And I said, I told myself I'll just check it again at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Well, then come 10 o'clock, I got a high wind advisory, and it said that winds were going to be 20 miles an hour. I said, "Okay, cool." Well, then there's the gusts. The gusts were like 40 miles an hour, and they would sustain for 5 to 10 minutes. And this is a new lake I'd never been to. And this is where the first mistake comes in, right? So don't trust your weather app. It says, "Hey, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, this wind's going to run through." Right after I got that high wind advisory, they said, "Oh, well, high wind advisory starts at 2 o'clock." It was maybe 20 minutes later at like noon that wind just started whipping. Second mistake I made was not doing any research on my lake, really. I was like, I'm just going to go out here. I'm going to fish. I'm going to do it blind. I'm just going to figure it out. That's what I wanted to do. Well, if I'd looked at the contour map, I'd have noticed that from the boat ramp all the way across the lake in two directions, the water didn't get more than 4 feet deep. So what that meant was when the wind was blowing real hard, it wasn't just like white capping, it was rolling waves. Like my fish finder was saying 6 foot to 2.5 foot. And I'd come way up high, and then my trolling motor would bottom out on the in the lake. And when I left, I was like, "Man, that wind started to pick up pretty bad. I'm going to go ahead and hit the house, so I'm not just getting pushed around." I've been fishing since 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm just going to go ahead and go. Well, when I rolled around this point where I come from deep water, where it wasn't that bad, I rolled around this point and there was rolling waves, and I immediately started to get swamped. It was immediately just didn't matter what I did, it was coming over into my kayak. And one of the problems that the native Titan has, Titan 12, not the Titan X, the Titan 12, is that the front hatch has spots where water can get in. It is what it is. So that filled my hole started filling up fast, and I was on the phone with my wife, and I told her, I said, "Hey, I'm just going to find somewhere to park this thing and figure it out." And I could see my truck. It was about a quarter mile away. I could see it, but it was might as well have been 100 miles away because I wasn't getting to it. There wasn't no way. So I pointed at the nearest bank, and I just went. And I by the time I got there, I was in about 2.5 feet of water, and my kayak just sunk. I got out and I was waist deep. It was sunk, realistically. And I did everything I could to pull it all the way up to the bank, and I just couldn't. Luckily, there's some divine intervention, and there's a couple fellas there that were from the at that bank, a piece of property there, that were from the power company. They had a winch in their truck. They helped me get my kayak out of the water, gave me a ride over to my truck so I can get it, and got it all taken care of. Got my kayak loaded up, got my little bilge pump in there, and pumped all the water out, everything else. And I lost a couple things that were, not necessarily important. They were just like little stuff that just kind of floated out of my kayak whenever it it was underwater, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I didn't lose my life, and I didn't lose my entire kayak and everything else. So with that, I kind of wanted to try and go over some safety rules and some stuff that you really need for safety, just in case something like this happens to you, or to maybe prevent it from happening to you. First thing I want to talk about is your PFD, right? So I have an Onyx AM24. I like it. It's light. You hardly tell it's there. Now, I know a lot of folks like the NRS Chinook. It doesn't matter what kind of life jackets you have a life jacket. I was wearing mine. I fish KBF. It's a requirement. So I wear mine all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a beautiful bluebird sky day, no issues, whatever. I wear mine. Second thing is an emergency whistle. Have an emergency whistle attached to your PFD, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to, whistle at those guys so they knew where I was. So I have this little wet bag kit that I have some little tools in, and got some stuff like electrical tape and crescent wrench, some glow sticks, and I have one of these. So the problem that I had, another thing that I did wrong was, this is a little air horn. They're $6 at Walmart. I have one of those in this bag. Problem is the bag was buried in the bottom of this hatch, and where I was sitting at, with kind of honestly freaking out a little bit and didn't have any way. I didn't have the ability to get to this while trying not to sink. So if you're going to have a bag like this, and especially if it's a day with rough weather or whatever, find a place to stick it where you can get to it. Again, most important though, for your safety, is PFD. Let's talk about some other things. So I was completely soaked. Pants like these that are like quick dry, don't wear jeans in the water. It's especially if it's cold, whatever, because all they're going to do is soak up the water, and they're going to just retain it, and it's just not going to go anywhere. These dry really quickly, and that's important. I would say that after your life jacket, clothes that dry is probably the next biggest thing, as far as comfort after the fact. All right, and some other stuff that would be a really good idea to do. Whenever you go out, let somebody know where you're going. Say, hey, I'm going to, for example, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to Point A Lake. I'll be home by 5 o'clock. And I periodically check in with my wife and say, hey, this is, everything's going good, no problems, whatever. Or I say, hey, I'm getting skunked. I'm coming home. And, but tell somebody where you are, no matter what, and give them a time. Say, hey, I'll call you at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever time you plan on getting off the water. I'll call you as soon as I get off the water. So if you don't get off the water, something happens, somebody knows, hey, I was supposed to get a call from Charlie at 4 o'clock and he hasn't called me yet. Let me try and call him. Or if I don't hear anything by 6 o'clock, I might need to call the police, call and let somebody know, hey, this is what's going on. But also be responsible. Call them. Don't forget, because the problem is that if you say, hey, I'm going to be home, I'm going to be off the water by 5 o'clock, I'm going to give you a holler then, and you don't call them, then they're going to, freak out for no reason. And then next time you say, oh, well, I'll be off the water at 5 o'clock, I'll call you then, and you don't call, but then there is something wrong, they're not going to call the police. They're not going to do anything. They'll be like, oh, you just forgot to call me again. But always, always, always let somebody know where you're going to be. With check-in times, stuff like that. Those are the biggest things I can think of, is as far as like if a situation like that happens. But also what I started doing, especially in the winter, is keep yourself a dry bag. of clothes in your truck or in your kayak. They're not going to do any good if your kayak's at the bottom of the lake, but if they're in your truck, then you can at least change clothes and not get hypothermia. For me, it was the air temperature that day was 75 degrees. Water temperature was 65 degrees, but the wind was whipping 40 miles an hour. But my clothes dried quickly because I was wearing clothes that are the dry fit, whatever you want to call it. If y'all have any questions or comments, let me know. And I would love to, if you have any suggestions for other stuff that I need or you feel like is needed, please put it out there. I mean, shoot, put a comment on the video. Thank y'all. And y'all be safe for sure. Be safe and have a great day and be blessed.